Hey guys, Teeka's Dragon here, and today we have a spicy game of EDH between Winota, Joiner of Forces, and Titania, Protector of Argoth. A quick run through of the deck, starting with Winota. So Winota's strategy is to stack out the game, stopping opponents' cards and abilities whilst building her own board through her own ability. And then we've got Titania, which is mono green good stuff. So the idea is to ramp itself ahead of the game and use one of a few win cons. So these include combos such as Food Chain, Shire, or just Crater Hoof. So let's see if Winota has the power to stop Titania getting ahead, or if Titania is just too fast for Winota. Remember, if you're interested in the deck list, you can find them on my Moxfield with the link in the description, which is right under the like and subscribe button. The dice have been rolled. We did roll twice because we both rolled a 10, but Titania rolled the higher one. Lucky me, rolled double one on the second round. So mono green will be going first. Starting hands are on the screen and away we play. My opponent starts off with a Mox Diamond, discarding the Mouth of Ronin, and then plays a Wooded Foothills, taps sacks, and then pays the Forest and the Mox Diamond there for a Sylvan Library and passes the turn. My turn's quick and easy. I draw a Blind Obedience, play my Plains, tap that, play my Hope of Giripa and pass turn. My opponent's turn, he untaps, he just finishes shuffling there. Draws 3 for the Sylvan Library, which is a Summoner's Pact, Voyager Satyr and a Snow-Covered Forest. And he decides to keep the Voyaging Satyr and the Forest, putting back the Pact. With this, he plays his Forest to hand for turn, taps the 2, plays the Voyaging Satyr and passes the turn. I untap, draw a Teeka Honor Guard for turn, play a Mountain, play the Teeka, swing for 1 with the Hope and pass turn. Now back over to my opponent's turn. Sylvan Library, drawing him a Summoner's Pact, Quirion Ranger and Wild Growth, of which he draws all 3, takes 8 life. So he starts by tapping a Forest, and with this he puts a Wild Growth on the untapped Forest. Then he taps this for 2 mana to play his Earthcraft. And now using his Earthcraft ability, he taps the Voyage Satyr to untap the double Forest. He taps that for 2. He uses one of those to play a Quirion Ranger, and then he taps that again to untap the Forest, tap that for a further 2, so we're at 3 floating mana, uses the Mox Diamond, and then with the full green mana, he plays his Team of Sabertooth and passes the turn. I untap, I draw a Stony Silence for turn, I play my Rugged Prairie as land for turn, tapping 2 mana for my Blind Obedience, swinging for the 1 with Hope and passing turn again. So my opponent untaps his Sylvan Library, he gets to draw a Carpet of Flowers, Ramunap Excavator and Regal Force, and he takes the Ramunap Excavator. Then proceeds to play the Ramunap. Then he plays the Wooded Foothills for land for turn from the grave. Then tapping 3 of his creatures consecutively to untap his Wild Growth Forest, he manages to play his commander and passes turn straight to me, where I draw a Scalding Tarn for turn. I then play the Scalding Tarn, and then I instantly tap sack and go and find myself a plateau. And also uses this time to sack his Wooded and search for a forest as well. And then 4 mana, I cast Winota, go to combat, swing with their Hope. So I draw the top 6, and then there is a Sanctum Prelate, Esper Sentinel, Plains, Legion Warboss, Ranger Captain of Eos, and a Generous Gift. And I do decide to keep the Ranger Captain of Eos, which enters tapped and attacking and has indestructible until end of turn. He takes the damage, and then over to his turn, he untaps. And then as he's ending his upkeep, I decide to sack my Ranger Captain of Eos. So in response, he plays his Summoner's Pact. With the Summoner's Pact, he searches up an Azusa Lost But Seeking. That goes into his hand, and then we proceed to his Sylvan Library draws. The 3 cards drawn off the Sylvan Library is a Strip Mine, Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves, and he decides to keep just the Llanowar Elves. Immediately he goes and plays his Azusa for turn. Then his first land dropped, he plays back his Mouth of Ronin from the grave. Then using Earthcraft's ability, he gets 5 mana to sack the Mouth of Ronin, dealing 4 damage to Winota. Winota dies, and then he does get a 5/3 because the land left the battlefield. And then his land dropped 2 and 3, he plays the Mouth of Ronin again and his Wooded Foothills from grave. And then finally paying 1 to play the Llanowar Elves from his hand. Then over to my turn, so I untap, draw a Scroll Rack for turn, I tap 2 mana to play my Loyal Apprentice from hand. And then over to combat where I swing with the Hope of Garipa again. No blocks, he takes 1 and then he decides to crack his Wooded Foothills, and then in response whilst he's searching for this I then sack my Hope of Garipa so he can't cast non-creature spells until my next turn. Main phase 2 I go ahead and play my Stony Silence as well. So in my end step my opponent decides to pay 5 mana to sack his Mouth of Ronan again to deal 5 damage to the Teeka. Over to my opponent's turn, untaps everything and then he pays the 4 mana for the Summoner's Pact from last turn. Then his Sylvan Library draws, which are a Reclamation Sage, a Shire Soul of the Wild and a Gemstone Caverns, keeping the Rec Sage and a Shire in hand. He starts by casting the Reclamation Sage, targeting the Blind Obedience, and then goes ahead and taps some of his creatures to be able to play the Ashaya. He's now going to demonstrate an infinite loop. Firstly tapping the Voyaging Satyr to untap the Forest with a Wild Growth on. Because Quirion Ranger is a forest thanks to a Shire, he's able to bounce it, return it to his hand to be able to untap the Voyaging Satyr. He then taps the forest again for 2 green to play the Quirion Ranger. Taps the Voyaging Satyr to untap, rinse and repeat, netting 1 green mana each time and therefore infinitely doing it for infinite green mana. Now he can use the Teema Sabertooth ability to start bouncing back his creatures. So he bounces his Reclamation Sage and then plays it again to target my Stony Silence. He then does this with Titania, fetching back his Wooded Foothills each time and then using this to fetch for his further 8 snow-covered forests in the deck. Each time pinging himself 1 but also getting himself a 5/3. Then bringing back Mouth of Ronan to kill my final blocker. I drew a Ginger Brute for turn, so I spend the 4 mana to play Rick, Steadfast Leader, choosing Life Gain and Vigilance. Not that it really matters. My opponent untaps, does his Sylvan Library triggers, puts 2 back on top, swings, and the damage kills me. The game is over and it's clear that Titania is just too well equipped to be bogged down by a few stacks pieces. With green being such a strong colour and having multiple ways to deal with the enemy, Winota was no match this time around. The MVC, most valuable card, was by far Sylvan Library, letting Titania outvalue me on every turn with multiple draws, and also just having the knowledge of the top cards and the ability to then decide on when you're fetching with that Wooded Foothills. Guys, I hope you were impressed with the game and you enjoyed it. If so, make sure you like and subscribe. That way you know when the next game is up. And I'll see you next time. Bye.